All right, it's time to talk about a stock that has increased 60% over the last 5 months, a stock that's made me over $25,000 over the last 4 to 5 months. And this is a stock that we've talked about previously. And so we want to go into what is so beneficial about this stock. Okay. What can you guys do with this specific stock? What does it look like over the next 5+ years? And we know that a lot of you guys want to make money right now. So can you make money in it right now? But then also what's going to happen over the next 5+ years so that we're sitting in a really, really good spot. We're going to break down some different aspects around it. We're going to talk about things we talked about in the past. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually see like, hey, how much is this? Should we spend some more money and invest in this further? Now, I'm here in Tokyo. I'm on this 2+ week, 17-day business trip. I got 2 days left. I went out for a run this morning and I'm just, coming back from that run, and I was thinking through a couple different factors around stock picking and whether or not that's something that I should be doing as much as I have been lately. And I went back and I'm looking through my Vanguard and I'm looking into this stock and I'm thinking through a couple different lenses. I'm watching some YouTube videos and I'm listening to YouTube, and I started to really think about AI. Okay. And I'm thinking about AI and I'm looking at, something like ChatGPT, which I tend to use quite a bit. And it actually brought me back to a period, and when I was growing up in high school, okay, so the late 90s, early 2000s. I graduated in 2002. I'm 41 years old. And back in the late 90s, we would go online and you'd go on Yahoo search, right? You'd go on Ask Jeeves and you'd type in this prompt to Ask Jeeves and you'd get some, a lot of times terrible responses that just seemed absolutely absurd. And then sometimes you would get the answers that you were looking for. And with Yahoo, you would go on Yahoo search, right? You go on and you would search through Yahoo, but then you could actually go into different forums and different groups. And so I was in a whole bunch of different groups. I would be in strength and conditioning groups. I would be in groups around World of Warcraft, stuff like that. So you could ask people questions all outside the world and figure these things out and figure out your questions. Now, the thing that I'm bringing up is that Google search didn't exist, okay? So it was Yahoo. It was Ask Jeeves. I remember my junior year of high school, a kid brings up, did you try this thing called Google? And I remember looking at it and going in and searching on it. And for like the first 6 months, it was like, I'm not really going to play around with this. But, eventually by the time I got to college, 2002, 2003, it really started to roll. By the time it was at the end of college, 2007, like it was Google search. It's what you were using. You were using Google search all the time. And we would, after that, then you started searching with Wikipedia and YouTube was around for about 3 years. So you started to use YouTube more. Now, the interesting thing here is that when we think about AI, okay, and we think about how AI is going to grow, and we think about the future, and we think about stock value, okay, we're looking at a couple different factors here, and we start to think about in the sense of AI, and we're looking at something like ChatGPT. Okay, essentially, ChatGPT, in my opinion, is like the first one, right? Like it was the first big one, and I use it a lot, and it's getting better all of the time. And it also, in ChatGPT, you have a lot of different factors now. It's getting better with file organization. It's getting better with all these different aspects. But I want to bring up something interesting is that I've found I'm going and I'm using Gemini a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going through and I'm like, hey, Gemini, which is owned by Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, I'm using Gemini quite a bit more. Now, what does that mean for stocks? What does that mean for growth financially? Over this period of time, I've noticed, and then recently I noticed, wow, this thing, Nano Banana, which is the Gemini version of video creation, is starting to take off. It's about 8 seconds of video creation that you can get from AI. And it's starting to get to be pretty powerful. And if we think about where's Nano Banana going to be in 2 years, they have Alphabet/Google has YouTube. YouTube has trillions of hours of free content generated by creators, right? They have tons and tons and tons of video that they can pull from and make AI generated video. And that's going to be used to feed Nano Banana, which is going to be used inside of Gemini. And it takes me back to the Ask Jeeves. It takes me back to Yahoo search. And it takes me even further thinking, if we're thinking about YouTube, okay, and we're thinking about even to the point of now you look at YouTube and then Waymo. And as I mentioned earlier in this business trip on a couple of videos prior, I had seen a handful of Waymos driving around Tokyo. And I'm going, man, if you take free data, if you take data in general, right? You look at YouTube, and the biggest video platform in the world for long form, by far. And then you take Waymo, right? And then you look at Android. And Android is the largest provider in mobile, by far. Android, right? Like you're looking at information from Android as well. Now that is access to data that will then be used to develop and implement and make Gemini and all the attributes around Gemini better. And I'm thinking through this and I'm going, man, then you go think about cloud and you're thinking through all of these different things that Google has. And then even to the point of how the AI experience inside of Drive is getting better and the data that they can pull from Drive. And I'm looking at a company like OpenAI/ChatGPT, which isn't publicly traded, but I'm going, Google in the last 6 months. So when we first started talking about this is back in like June, I was mentioning like I had a pretty big holding in Google. And people were like, oh, well, you know, I had actually had a talk with a pretty prominent influencer in the financial space. And he was like, well, I'd be hesitant to put too much money into Google because of the lawsuits going on. And what ends up happening now is that we're looking at this and we're going, wow, it's up 60+% since May, April. Like we're looking at 60% gains in 5 months. You put if we would have put even more money into this back in April than I did, this thing would be absolutely to the moon. And now thinking forward, it's cheap. It's genuinely trading at a cheap cost basis. And if you think through Gemini and YouTube and Android users and all the companies that use Drive consistently, and then you're looking at Waymo, and then that's just scratching the surface of where this company is going. And we have to think through what's going to happen over the next 5 years, right? A year from today, this is going to be up even higher. We're hitting all-time highs, and this is going to absolutely go to the moon. And I've got, I'm looking at TipRanks right now, which is not sponsored, but if they want to sponsor me, feel free to sponsor me. Google Cloud growth, AI innovations and adoption, various different growths across search, YouTube, and cloud. YouTube performance is up 13%. They've got crazy record free cash flow. So as we move forward, as we move forward into 2026, I really want you to think about when you're investing in a stock, what company are you buying? And what does that company provide? And where is that company looking forward? Be forward thinking. I have these conversations and, people will bring up all these things. And there's a lot of companies to make a lot of money off of, but we're not geniuses. We're not, this is a lot of stuff that we're doing on the side. Play it simple. Be aware of what you've got. Be aware of where you're at as an investor. You're not going to find some, meme stock that's going to make you millions and millions of dollars. You can put a decent chunk of change. And in my case, I'm looking at Alphabet and I'm looking at, other companies similar to Alphabet. I know what they do. I know where they're heading. I know where they've been. I know how well the product is. I use ChatGPT all the time. And I use Gemini, and I find I'm paying for ChatGPT, and I'm not even paying for Gemini, and I'm probably using them equally. And so as you think through this moving forward, you've got to recognize that when you're making an investment and you're thinking about where you're going to be long-term, you have to think about the purchase of a company, okay? Think about the purchase of the company. I recommend looking into Alphabet and using that as something that you can personally look into yourself. I hope this helps somebody out there. I wanted to just reiterate that because I've been talking about it in the past. I've talked about it now recently a few times because I've seen the Waymos here in Tokyo. I think they're going to keep just going to the moon over the next 5+ years. Hope this helps somebody out there. Until next time, peace.